Hey everyone, welcome back to the Weekly Coder. I'm Chris, and before we get started, I'd like to apologize really quickly. I haven't uploaded in a while, I know that. So this video is probably just a shock to some of you because I haven't uploaded in so long. It probably will almost seem surreal that there's a new video, but I'm hoping that there will be more. The reason that I haven't uploaded in a while is because I've been pretty busy with other projects, and I haven't really had time to focus on this, but I now have been working on a project that I think I'm ready to share with you guys. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and start the episode now. And in this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the new project that I've been working on, which is I created my own multiplayer server that is basically going to allow you to create multiplayer games on Unity. Which, okay, I know, it's already a thing. You can do this with other multiplayer servers out there that offer those services, but nonetheless, I wanted to build my own. Number one, because I wanted to get the experience of actually working with multiplayer server communication, on a lower level, and because I wanted to have my own server. Simple as that. There's no other reason, right? There could be so many reasons to not do this. Time invested, whatever, but you know what? If you're going to do your own thing, do your own thing, right? Doesn't matter. Anyways, so I've decided I'm going to go ahead and the cloud-hosted portion of my server, I'm going to make it publicly available, although it's going to be by invitation only. And to get an invitation code, all you have to do is hop on over to my Patreon. The link is here, and you sign up. I think the lowest tier is like $1. You subscribe. Send me a message, ask me for an invitation code, and I'll shoot you one over, and then you can go ahead and register for an account and start following along with the rest of the project. Okay, so assuming that you've done all that, you've got your invitation code, you went to the site and you registered, haven't done anything else yet, that's cool, because we're going to go over all of that in this episode, alright? So, the first thing you're going to want to do is, you're going to want to create a Unity project. So, you know what? I'm just going to stick with this new Unity project, and I'm going to save it just to my desktop. I'm going to take it and make it a 2D, just because I'm not doing 3D yet. But we will. There's going to be a project for 3D. I actually have something in mind, but not yet. First, we're going to do this 2D thing, okay? So, click Create, just like always. Now we're going to wait, hopefully not too long, for this thing to run. Do its thing. Alright, look at that, a new version of Unity. Well, we're not going to do that right now. But, let's go ahead and maximize this, so it takes up the entire screen. Now, everyone should be familiar with this. If this is the first time you're using Unity, you should probably not start with doing something that's multiplayer, because it's going to be a little more confusing. Otherwise, there shouldn't be any reason why you couldn't follow along anyway, so that's completely up to you. This is going to be the first part of a unknown number of parts series. And the title, I think, of this series is just going to be the MultiSpieler server, okay? And basically it's going to have kind of a supplement to the documentation that I have yet to create, but it's going to basically detail the steps that are required to download the package that you need, add it to your Unity project, and, connect, and then get some information back and communicate with the server, setting up custom objects, that kind of thing. So, maybe 3 or 4 parts total. Maybe not even that many. Depends on how quickly we can cover stuff, and, keep things short and simple, and to the point. So, now that we have our project, the next thing we need is the client software to connect to the server with, right? So, let's go ahead and jump on over to the place where you can get that. And I'll leave a link down below, but basically you'll want to go to https://git.fletchnet.xyz/cfletcher32/mpclient. So, what that'll give you is a Git repository of the Mpclient. So, you'll not want to be in here. That's not where you're going to find what you need. You'll want to click on Releases, which you can get to from here. or over from the project overview, you can click on releases. So at the time of this video, the latest release is 0.4.3. You'll see it goes all the way down to here, which don't even worry about this version. And by the way, if you see release 0.4.4 or 0.5 or 1.2, whatever, grab the latest one that you have here, and that's the one that we're going to work with. So what you'll want to click on, because there's tons of links for you to work with, is this one right here, the Mpclient-0.4.3.unity package. Okay, that's going to download the actual Unity package that we're going to be adding to Unity. So, back over in Unity, I'm going to go ahead and go to Downloads and click on the Mpclient 0.4.3.unity package. And that's going to open up this window, this Import Unity package window. And you'll want to keep everything checked and just click on Import. And now Unity is just going to do its thing. It's going to compile some scripts. It's going to reload the assemblies. And once it's done with that, you will have a brand new folder in Unity under your assets. And that folder is called MultiSpieler Network Client. Okay. So in here, there's a bunch of files that you don't need to worry about. An editor folder. So you know what? Just don't even look at this stuff. It's not anything that you need to concern yourself with. If you want to know how these things work, go ahead. Look through the files. But for the sake of this tutorial, you don't need to care, okay? So, if Unity did everything right, and you did everything right, then you should have a new menu item up here. So you'll have Unity, File, Edit, Assets, Game Object, Component, and then you'll have MultiSpieler. You'll click on that, and then just click Create New, okay? So, this window will pop up, MultiSpieler. Now, you'll have 4 properties that you need to fill out. If you miss any of them and click Create, it'll tell you that you need all fields. Okay? All fields are required. The server, you'll need to leave that as it is for now. It's us-east.multispieler.com. The port is 5000. And then you'll need an API key and an app ID. Okay? So the API key and the app ID, you'll actually get that from your MultiSpieler app, okay? So I'm going to simulate, let's just say that you got your invitation code and you created your ID and you are ready. You're going to log in, okay? And you're going to create an app, which I've already done, so I'm going to go ahead and blow that away so that we can get kind of fresh slate, right? So, dashboard. Number 1, don't pay attention to this graph. It's useless. It's tracking no data points. This is all just crap data just to kind of put a pretty chart up here that'll one day have some useful information. These are global stats. So any app that you create is going to increase this app number. So if you've created 20 apps, you'll see 20 here. Rooms, this is also global, so this isn't tied to any specific app. If you've got 5 rooms in app A and 10 rooms in app B, then you'll have 15 rooms total. Same thing with players, those are spread across the rooms, which are spread across the apps. So these are global stats. If you go to apps, all you'll have to do here is click on Add New. And the only thing that you have to do, very simple, is give your app a name. So we'll call it My Awesome App, or Game, whatever. Click Add. So now you are left with this app ID and API key. And you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Well, shit, where did all my stuff go? It's okay. You can click on the game, and it'll give you those values again, right? So the app ID and the API key. So, really quickly before we jump back into Unity, I just want to kind of show you what happens if you click on Details. Okay? So what happens if you click on Details? Nothing. It takes you to this page and it shows you all these values that have no values, right? All these panels here with nothing. And that's cool because we don't have anything yet to look at. So, right now I'm not worried about any of this. I just wanted to show you guys that this page exists. For right now, we just need to add our app ID and our API key to Unity. So let's go back and grab that. Go to Apps, click on My Awesome Game, and we're going to highlight the API key. Control or Command Z. Go over to Unity, paste in the API key, Go back to the website, copy the app ID, and paste in the app ID. Now we click Create. Now if you'll see, we have an Mpclient object. This is also an object that you'll never have to do anything with in the scene, but it needs to exist in your scene for things to work. The Mpclient object has an Mpclient component, an MP Event Manager component, and a TCP client component. The Event Manager is used to pass events back and forth, so you can start to create listeners and receive callbacks for those listeners. The TCP client is what's used to communicate between the actual client and the server. And the Mpclient is a wrapper API kind of endpoint. It's a wrapper around TCP client that allows you to just kind of call the methods to communicate with the server. So it kind of just wraps it up nicely so that you don't have to worry about the nitty-gritty stuff, right? So now that we've got that, to just do something very, very simple, which is to connect to the server maybe, right? The first thing we're going to have to do is actually make a way to communicate with the Mpclient. And the way to do that is to add Mpclient as a reference to another script, maybe a game script. And in order to have a game script on our scene, we have to create an empty first, right? So we're going to create an empty in our scene, and we're going to call this game. And that's going to keep a reference to our game script that we need to create. So in our assets folder, we're going to create another folder. I'm going to call this one scripts. And in that folder, we're going to create a C# script. And here, we're going to just call this one game. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on that, and that'll open up in Visual Studio. Alright. And I made the font really big for you guys so you can see it. So what we need to do is we need to create a reference to the Mpclient object. Okay? And the way that works is before we can do this is we actually have to be using the namespace for the MultiSpieler client. So what you're going to have to do is write using a MultiSpieler client. Okay? So now we're using that namespace, so now that we can actually use the classes that are in that namespace. And one of the classes is Mpclient. And actually we're going to make this public so that we have access to it in the inspector. So public Mpclient, and we're just going to make an MP, just what we're going to call our variable here. And that's it, right? So in the start method, maybe what we'll do is we'll connect to the Mpclient. But before we do that, we want to make sure that we have a callback using the event manager to actually call a method when something happens, right, from the server. So let me show you what that looks like. First, let's create that method. So this will be a private method. It's going to return nothing, and we're going to call this message authentication. And it's going to receive some data, and the type of data it's going to be receiving is called MP data received, and we're just going to call that variable data, okay? And the authentication method is going to receive a type of MP player object, okay? So in the way that we're going to do this is that our data that we receive is an object that has a property called data, a property called message, and that message is actually another object that has a property called description. And that contains our JSON string that we need to deserialize from when we received it via the client, right? The server, sorry. So we're going to use MP player to create a player using the mpplayer.createFromJSON method, and then we're just going to pass in data.message.description, okay? And that's going to create an MPPlayer object. Now, with that MPPlayer object, we might want to look at some of the properties, right? So one of the things that happens when you connect to the server, you actually, if you authenticate properly using the API key and the app ID, then you will receive back a token. So what we can do here is we can say debug.log player.token, which will tell us the token that we received back after the authentication. Now, we need to create the listener that'll call this method. So the way that we do that is we use mp-event-manager.startListening, and we want to start listening to message types of authentication. And when that happens, we want to call message authentication. Okay? So basically what we're saying here is we're saying, hey, we want to listen to this type of message. When this type of message is triggered, message type authentication, we want to call this method, which is message authentication, and then the data that is going to be passed in by this event is going to be deserialized into an Mpclient object, which is then what we're then going to use that for is we're going to log out the token. Okay? I know it seems like a lot, but it's actually going to get very, very simple after we start getting through a couple of these. So, now that we've got our Mpclient up here, we can use this variable, mp, and we can call the connect method. Okay? Now we don't have to pass anything into the connect method. What the connect method does is it actually communicates with the TCP client along with the Mpclient and uses the API key and app ID values to call another method to authenticate against the server, which is then going to verify the API key and app ID that we passed in. And if those are correct, it's going to call another method in the back end that is going to handle the authentication piece. And if the authentication was successful, it's then going to pass back an entire Mpclient object that's going to contain the authentication token that we're then going to use in any future calls to the Mpclient. Okay? I know that was a lot, that was a mouthful, but it's all going to start making sense. And, you know, there's not a whole lot that you actually have to understand about the backend and how it functions just to know that these things are actually going to work, right? So we're going to save this. And there's one more thing we've got to do, and that is we need to assign the Mpclient object that we have here in the scene to the Mpclient property that we created in our game class. And we also have to assign the game component that we just created, the script, to our game empty, right? So we created this game empty. We created this game component. So we're just going to take that and we're going to drag it over here in the inspector since we have game selected. Right? So now it's just asking, hey, we need an Mpclient because we created that, remember? So now we're just going to take this Mpclient and drag that over here. And now it's referenced. Okay? Now, when we press play, what should happen is, based on our script, we're going to register for this event. We're going to connect to the Mpclient, to the server. When the authentication finishes, this message authentication is going to be called because this event's going to get triggered. We're going to get an Mpclient object by deserializing using this create from JSON method. And then we're going to use debug.log to log out the token property of the Mpclient object. So, let's press play. Okay, blue screen, no errors. If we look at the console, we'll see that we have this right here. And that is our token. That's the token that we got back from the authentication. So the authentication was right. So, now that we're connected, I want to jump back over to the website really quick and show you guys that all of this data is live, right? So if we click details, you now see on your app that you have one player connected to the server. You'll see the player ID. You'll see the server ID of the server that it's connected to. Okay, and then you'll see the player number, and that's only relevant if the player is actually in a room. And if the player is in a room, then this will be 1. And then also if the player is in a room, you'll see that room ID is going to be filled out. And the room that the player's in is going to be shown in here, either the public or the private rooms. So, and also you'll see the token. Now, you have some buttons here. These don't function yet. what they will do in the future is that this X here is going to kick the player from the server, and this blue button here will give you some more information about the player, such as how long they've been connected, which rooms they've been connected to, their history, what they've done since they've been online, that kind of thing. Same thing with the private rooms and the public rooms. They'll have information buttons for more information about them and what's in them. So, you know, that's that. The other thing that you can do in here, let me show you. Nope, let's leave that for another video. Okay. So for now, we'll keep it to this. Creating a new Unity scene, creating this game client, creating this Mpclient, creating the reference to that, and pressing play and making sure that we connect and get a token back. Okay, that's literally all that we have for part 1. And part 1 we'll call connecting to MP server using the Mpclient Unity package and Unity. Okay, so that'll be the end of part 1. And again, to get an invitation to use this multiplayer server, just go ahead and hop on over to Patreon. The link is below. And go ahead and send me a message there. You'll have to be subscribed to send me a message, but send me a message and ask for an invitation code, and I will get that sent right out to you. And if you have any problems, we can directly communicate via Patreon, and we can get that sorted out. That's it. That's all I have for this episode. Once we get done with all the parts of actually, you know, talking about the basics of the MP server and how to communicate with it, how to create a room, how to join a room, how to join a private room or a public room, how to, you know, just kind of maneuver your way around. Once we get done with all the basics, then we're actually going to build a fully functional multiplayer game. It's not going to be anything extravagant, but it's going to be fun, and it's going to show how versatile the server actually is in being used for any kind of game, actually. It could be 2D, it could be 3D, it could be turn-based, it could be, you know, players all playing at the same time. You can use it for first-person shooters, pretty much anything. There's nothing that you couldn't do on this game server, I'd imagine. So, that said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and I will see you guys next time.